Hello, everyone. So I went to the flea market earlier and I got a bunch of really good new banknotes, but there are a few that are especially interesting. So I want to focus on those today. So let's get into it. First new edition I want to cover is an interesting Japanese occupation banknote from World War II, but it's from a place that I haven't actually seen before, Oceania. Let me explain. As you can see, there's a distinctive image on the front of a palm-lined beach. We got the letter O as part of the issuing number to tell you that this is issued for Oceania, which covers several different territories. Very nice design as usual. We can see palms on either side, a lot of geometric design. Typical simple back. These ones are issued as pounds rather than pesos or other local units. They're also issued pounds, I believe, for Burma. And interestingly, on the front, there is a written message. Earl, sent to me from New Guinea, August 1944. Always neat to see banknotes with little written messages on them, especially if you can read them. So this was sent by someone who was on the Pacific front back home here to the US. So an interesting artifact of the war. So, what exactly was Oceania in this context? Well, at the time, Japan was taking over many parts of East Asia and the Pacific as part of what they called the Greater East Asia Co Prosperity Sphere. This was a Japanese colonial plan to basically bring the entirety of East Asia and a lot of the Pacific under Japanese control. Now, of course, this didn't end up working out, and the sphere was dissolved in August 1945. However, they had to issue occupation currencies for the places that they occupied. I have several for other places like Malaya, the Philippines, Burma, the Dutch East Indies. But then there's Oceania, which doesn't actually cover one specific territory. Oceania actually covers a large number of territories in the Pacific. This includes Guam, the Gilbert Islands, Ocean Island, the Caroline Islands, the Mariana Islands, Palau, and New Guinea, which was then a UN territory largely managed by Australia. And interestingly, on the written note of the banknote, we can see that this banknote was sent to the US by a frontline Pacific Front soldier in New Guinea, which is now the nation of Papua New Guinea. The Gilbert Islands and Ocean Island are now part of Kiribati. The Caroline Islands are now the Marshall Islands. I believe I might be incorrect about that. The Mariana Islands and Guam. Guam was actually under U.S. rule before this time. Marianas were actually already under Japanese rule as part of the South Seas Mandate alongside the Caroline Islands. But the Mariana Islands referred to specifically here are now the Northern Mariana Islands. Palau, well, Palau is now the country of Palau, which was also originally under Japanese rule. And those were the territories in the Pacific that this was placed under. Basically, sort of an umbrella term, like how Oceania is often used to describe the entire region within the Pacific, rather than using the term including Australia, which refers specifically to the continent of Australia itself. And speaking of Australia, there's a bit of an interesting story behind this specific occupation banknote because in 1944, an Australian print shop in Brisbane was actually shut down for violating wartime paper rations because they were making replicas of these banknotes. Now, this does seem to be an odd operation. It doesn't appear to have been specific counterfeiting because they were marked as replicas, and the government did rule that they were not legal tender in Australia for obvious reasons. But the print shop had to be shut down in 1944 because they were violating the wartime ration rules regarding paper. And it's just a bit of an odd task in general because I don't really know why they would be doing that. But perhaps there's more context I'm not aware of. But another interesting moment in World War II history and a very interesting banknote with frontline Pacific Front connections that really helps illustrate it. Oh, by the way, they're usually marked replica on the back, and they're actually more expensive because they're rare. But as you can see, this is a real one. So another really nice addition for the collection here. I should also note that although this banknote does not have a specific date, this currency was only issued for 3 years between, actually, is it 3 years? I'm not exact. I think it was 3 years between 1942 and 1945. And one of the never identifying features of the currency itself is this unique little beachfront image here. None of the other currencies had this. They tend to have distinctive images. Like the ones for Burma had a picture of Buddhist pagodas. I believe that the Philippine ones had what I believe to be a sugar farm, and there were a couple others too. But just thought those were some good details of note. Get a good view of the banknote here. The next banknote is another pretty similar one. Another Axis occupation banknote from World War II, this time from Europe though. 20 korun from the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia in what is today Czechia. And as you can see, the top is in German and the bottom is in Czech. This is a much simpler banknote. We got a picture of a young boy here, probably not anyone specific, just sort of like a model image, and a little still life of fruit going on in the background. This is a mostly green banknote, actually just like the previous one, with the serial numbers in red. And on the back, we can see basically just everything restated again. We can see the emblem here and the denomination. Now, the Bohemia and Moravia Koruna was issued in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia in part of what was then Czechoslovakia and is today part of Czechia, also known as the Czech Republic. This koruna was issued between 1939 and 1945, and the Protectorate itself, which was a Nazi puppet state, was mostly Czech in population, which is why the banknote is half German and half Czech. It was pegged to the Reichsmark at 1 Reichsmark equaling 10 koruna, and the banknote itself actually has a specific date. If we look at it, we can see that this was issued on, looks like 24th of January 1944. So this is a much older banknote, and it's, I would say, it's not as good in design as the previous one. It's much more basic. It doesn't really have that much detail to it. Like for comparison, there's a lot more geometric design going on here. And if we look at the fronts, I still think this one over here, the Oceania one, is better because it has a lot more geometric design going on to it. But aesthetics aside, this is another interesting historical banknote from a not so pretty chapter of Czech history, but still, it's very important that we preserve these sorts of things because they are valuable historical artifacts that remind us of those time periods and help us learn better what it was like so that these sorts of events and very dark time periods don't happen again. So, another neat collection, a very interesting historical artifact of Czech history, and another good addition to the collection. Now, the third banknote here is a much newer one. £1 from Gibraltar, dated specifically to the 15th of September 1979. As you can see, unlike the previous banknotes, this banknote is a very red banknote. We got the Rock of Gibraltar up here, Queen Elizabeth II in the middle, the Seal of Gibraltar right down here. As you can see, it says issued by the government of Gibraltar. Of course, the main city is called Gibraltar. I mean, it's just a little rock, of course. And on the back, we can see a picture of what is known as a convent. And this is where the governor of Gibraltar resides. You can tell it's a very English looking building. Looks like something you'd see in the English countryside. So, very interesting to see this. It's my first banknote from Gibraltar, also, I should add. So, neat one here. And the Gibraltar pound. Now, Gibraltar is an overseas territory of the United Kingdom. So, the Gibraltar pound is pegged to the pound sterling, which is used back in the United Kingdom. And Gibraltar had a bit of a complicated monetary history for years. They actually used the Spanish real for a long time, despite being under British rule. And they actually didn't start printing their own banknotes until 1927. And even more recently, did not print their own coins. Well, actually, not print, I mean, mint their own coins until 1988 which is a whole 9 years after this banknote was made. So Gibraltar really didn't have much of the way of their own currency until much more recently. So this is a very interesting banknote. Interesting to see. Also, I really like the font they put for the £1 symbol. It's a good font right there. I really like the design on here. Very geometric looking. I like these little geometric designs. And of course, we got the convent here. Very interesting to see this. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of this place before. So, another neat banknote to add to the collection. So, our first three banknotes were pretty interesting. First, we had two Axis occupation banknotes reflecting some pretty cataclysmic times for the regions that they were issued in. And we have an interesting new location added to the collection. So, what about the other banknotes? Now, these other banknotes are from countries I already have other banknotes from, but I still want to give them some love anyways. So, let me quickly review them here. First, we have very small banknote, 1 fen or 1 cent, as it is translated into English on the back, from China, dated to the year 1939. Nice little pagoda we got on the front. It looks like a rendering of an old style coin on the back. Very interesting. This was issued, looks like it was printed in the US by the Union Publishers and Printers Company in the United States. Very interesting. The US actually had a pretty close relationship with China due to the situation with Japanese expansionism in the 1930s. So that actually kind of reflected here since this was made in the US. Next, we have pretty simple but still really neat looking 1 won from South Korea. Since of course it is in Korean on the front. Interesting mix of like brown, yellow, and purple. Interesting color combination. This one doesn't have a date on it. It is translated to English on the back, but it was issued sometime between 1962 and 1970. So early years of South Korea developing as an independent country after the Korean split. Pretty interesting. Next, head over to Africa. We got 10 shillings from Uganda. See map of Uganda with the seal over here. And this doesn't have a date, but it was made in 1982. Very strong use of purple with some blue, green, and yellow going on. On the back, we can see some of the really nice Ugandan wildlife and the natural landscapes. Looks like we got a pretty neat waterfall going on in the back. So another neat banknote here. Now heading north into Europe, we have 10, pick this one up here, 10 drachma from Greece. From the year 1955, we can see the Greek monarch on the front, since Greece had a monarchy in 1955. It is orange. You usually don't see a lot of orange banknotes. And we can see very nicely built Greek Orthodox church on the back. This font here actually kind of resembles the sort of handwriting you see in Orthodox Christian like art. So pretty interesting use of font there. In the same area of the Mediterranean, we have 1,000 lire from Italy, dated exactly to the 14th of August, 1947. So only 2 years after the end of World War II. Italy was an Axis power and, of course, on the losing side of the war. So this would be Italy as they were rebuilding and transitioning into a post-Axis government. Very nice design we got on the front. Renaissance, very looking art over here. Very Renaissance looking, I should say. It is in Italian, of course. Very nice use of color. We got blue, green, red for the little Medusa seal on the bottom. And pretty simple on the back, but very well balanced in terms of the decoration. The design. So another neat banknote. Now going over to Iberia, to a place that I actually have ancestral connections to, we have 50 escudos from Portugal, dated exactly to let me look at the front here for a second, 28th of April 1953. And if my Portuguese pronunciation is accurate, that would be 28 de Abril de, oh, I don't know how to say 1953 in Portuguese, but I tried saying the date there. This is mostly a blue banknote. You see a lot of blue banknotes. I think the color works really well here. On the front, we got a picture of this guy. His name is, let me try and look closely at it. Fontes Pereira de Melo. Haven't heard of him before, but he's probably some major Portuguese figure. I mean, he has to be. He's on the banknote. And on the back, we have O Pensador, the thinker, and a very interesting use of sculpture image here. I saw a little seal up here. I usually don't see that a lot. I guess it might be an older one. So never neat banknote right there. And next country, we actually have two banknotes from this country. Once I find them. Here we go. Suriname, we got two banknotes from Suriname. Let's start with the front one. This is in really neat condition for its age. We got 5 gulden from the year, actually, exact date, 1st of September, 1963. Very nice condition for a banknote that age. It's all very nice blue. We got a picture of a local Surinamese woman carrying a basket with fruits on her head. As you can see, also looks like 1963 was a major year because they got this little torch going with a little banner with the year on it. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact significance of that. And on the back here, you can see really nice geometric design we got going on. Suriname's banknotes tend to look pretty good. And we got the Suriname seal in the middle. Suriname is an interesting country because Suriname is located geographically in South America, but they speak Dutch because they were formerly the colony of Dutch Guiana. And next up from Suriname, much newer, but actually somewhat similar, we can see the green 25 gulden from the 1st of November, 1985. And this banknote is actually quite similar to the first one, except of course it is noticeably green. We got a different image here. It looks like some sort of a sculpture thing going on over there. Also got a little red and blue, very nice. On the back here, we can see building and a lot of writing. I don't really read Dutch. I don't know what that says, but it's really important. It's just like a legal thing, like, hey, don't counterfeit this, which of course all the banknotes have. You actually can see a mixture of red and green. Works very nicely here. Interestingly, if we look at the front, you can see that this, whatever this is, it's dated to 25 February 1980. Not exactly sure what the significance is, though, but I'm assuming that's a pretty important date in the history of Suriname. So, two more neat banknotes there. Next, North Atlantic is Iceland. This is a really nice banknote. It's dated to 29, assuming that's March 1961, but this is actually printed in 1981. I'm not exactly sure why the date is different. I'm not sure if it was a typo. I just let it run because they didn't really print any with the correct year on it, assuming it was different for some reason, but I'm not sure why. As you can see, it is of course in the Icelandic language. On the front, we have blue, yellow, a little bit of green. This guy on the front, his name is Arngrimur Johnson Leroy, who lived from 1568 to 1648. I'm guessing he's carrying a book, and we do have what looks like books being read on the back, so perhaps he was a writer of some sort. Got a little Icelandic scene going on here. All the people are crowding around, and this guy in the middle is reading. We also see a few little objects over here. Very nice looking. So another good addition to the collection there. And let me see. I think this is going to be the last one that I have to cover. Once I find it. There we go. Let me just sort through. Make sure I don't have any I missed here. That looks good. All right. 10 convertible pesos from Cuba from the year 2012. And I don't know the exact story behind the convertible peso or the peso convertible, as it's said in Spanish. This was a currency used alongside the Cuban peso. Probably should have maybe looked a little bit into that. I didn't really think about it at the time since this wasn't one of the banknotes I was even more focused to. But this is actually pretty interesting. On the back, we have what looks like an electrical station and a maintenance truck. This is the first time I think I've ever seen a pickup truck on a banknote. But interestingly, I've seen power lines like industrial scenes a few times before, usually because they're used to promote, this image of, economic prosperity and that sort of thing. Let me see what the up on the top it says in Spanish. Revolucion energetica. I'm guessing it means energy revolution. Interesting. And on the front we have a monument. I'm guessing it's in Havana or another major city in Cuba. And it's labeled as being Monumento a Maximo Gomez. So it's a monument to Maximo Gomez, a prominent figure in Cuban history. So another really interesting banknote we got here. So this last item here is actually not a banknote, but it ended up in the banknote bin at the Ultimar flea market because it looked like one. And I decided to get it anyways because it's actually quite interesting. There really isn't much of anything on the back, but the front it's very colorful looking. And as you can see, this is from Italy. However, it's not an Italian banknote, despite being labeled as being 5,000 lire. This is actually a visitor's ticket for an office of an Italian government ministry. On the bottom here in Italian, it says that visitors have to keep this ticket on them while they are inside until they leave. And this is for the Ministry of, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's about culture and architecture and that sort of thing. So this is a pretty interesting item, not a banknote, but still pretty neat. Just thought I would show that too. So I mean, where else have you ever seen ticket to get into Italian ministry office? Pretty neat, right? So this is actually a pretty cool item, even though it's still not a banknote. It just looks like one. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you liked the video.